Let's begin as usual, taking a comfortable posture, checking the main points of the posture, our spine straight, our muscles relaxed, our legs stable and grounded, finding that posture of stillness in which we can relax completely without effort. Let's take 3 deep breaths, releasing with each out breath any tensions and discomforts. Allowing our minds to follow and settle in the present moment. Let's set our motivation for this practice. May it bring us greater well-being, peace, happiness, but also create the causes to benefit others. Now become aware of any sensations, perceptions, such as sounds, smells, visual perceptions, mental perceptions, such as thoughts, emotions. Just become aware of the present moment. And now focus for a few minutes either on the sensations of the breath throughout your body or the space of the mind and mental events. Or you can also practice Shamatha without an object. Remember to keep relaxing your body and mind. Relaxation is the foundation. Once we have good relaxation, we can cultivate stability, continuity on our chosen object. If you find yourself distracted, caught up in thoughts, gently bring your attention back. And now let's reflect on the far-reaching attitude of generosity. This is our wish to give anything, possessions, service, positive potential to others, without the wish to receive anything in return. not even appreciation. There are 3 types of generosity. The first one is giving material possessions to those in need, including people we know and don't know, and people we like and we don't like. So think of times in your life when it just came natural to you to give some material possessions, when you saw someone needed them. Rejoice, feel happy that you practice generosity in those moments. Now think of what you can give in the present or the near future. Maybe things you don't need, but that we sometimes keep due to attachment. In which ways can you start practicing this type of generosity? Think of some examples, some ideas. Think about to whom you can give and how you can give. Cultivate the altruistic intention and imagine yourself giving these things. The second type of generosity is giving protection to those in danger, such as travelers, insects who are drowning in water, children who are fighting, old people that need some protection, or ill people. So think of how you practiced this type of generosity in the past and rejoice about it. Feel happy for those actions. And think how you can give this kind of generosity in the present or in the future. Think about whom you can give and how you can give. To whom and how. Cultivate the altruistic intention and imagine giving protection to those in danger, care, attention. And the third type of generosity is giving wise advice and Dharma teachings to those who need them. This includes helping to calm friends who are angry, saying prayers and mantras out loud so animals nearby can hear them, leading meditations, and teaching the Dharma. Maybe giving a book, inviting a friend to a course or a teaching, something that can benefit others in this regard of learning the Dharma. Think about ways in which you give this in the past, how you can give in the present and future, in your community, to your friends, to the people around you, to the animals that surround you, And cultivate the altruistic intention and imagine yourself giving. Now make the determination to practice generosity in your daily life and take delight in the opportunity to give. Determine to give your time, your service, your skills in different ways, in different situations, whenever you have the opportunity to give. Now just rest in the present, aware of that decision. Let's finish dedicating this practice so we can keep cultivating generosity as a far-reaching attitude that can create the causes to lead us to enlightenment and be able to help countless sentient beings. So generosity is the first one of these 6 perfections or 6 paramitas, 6 far-reaching attitudes, and it helps us counteract that self-centered attachment, the attachment to that which we consider mine, and it's a direct antidote to attachment, right? To one of the main roots of suffering. So when we really give without expectation, we feel some kind of joy or happiness, and also we create space in our lives and in our minds to feel lighter and the moment we see that that thing we give is beneficial or useful for others, that gives a lot of meaning to our lives, to our actions. And we don't need to be millionaires or have a lot of material possessions, because sometimes we feel like we don't have enough to give or not enough good quality to give. But the point is just to give whenever we can. And whenever we see someone that needs something and that we have the possibility to give it or to help them. So not only material possessions, but we can offer our time, our skills, our knowledge, advice, protection. There's so many ways in which we can give. Just attending closely to someone, just listening to them, is an act of generosity. How do we feel when we are telling something to someone and they are not paying attention, they're just getting totally distracted, or they interrupt you in the middle? And how do you feel when they put and give you all their attention and they're actually listening to you? It feels great, right? But our attention spans are so short that we listen 3 seconds and then we start daydreaming or distracted, or we don't want to listen, we get bored or impatient. So if we could just remain quiet and listen someone that wants to talk to us, that's an amazing gift that we can give. And it doesn't cost, it's not expensive. We can always give our attention. And then if someone asks for help, maybe even if we have to pass through some kind of discomfort or it's not an agreeable sensation that arises, we are out of our comfort zone, or we feel we are busy. But someone is asking for something, for help to do something, or they're asking for something material like food or anything, and we have the possibility to give it, then it's a great opportunity to practice generosity. Now, in the Buddhist tradition, there's also this element of sharing the teachings, but not in a way of convincing or proselytism, like trying to convert people to Buddhism. It's just whatever you find practical, if you think it's beneficial and if other people are open to it, then sharing is important, right? If somebody comes and says, "Can you teach me how to meditate?" That's an amazing way to give, right? Or if they want some advice, they are suffering, and you can explain in a way that it makes sense to them and help them, then sharing the teachings or sharing a book or saying, "Look, there is this course, there is this retreat, it might be beneficial for you." But not like an imposition or going and telling everybody, "You need this," or "These teachings are for you." I went to a retreat and definitely you are very attached and very angry and you need this retreat to be happy. Well, that can be counterproductive, right? We have to be careful in how we share this. But just like meeting with our friends, putting our house and make gatherings to meditate, that's a way of giving, and or study together. There's so many ways. Now, sometimes we are very attached to something, If we feel that we want to practice something challenging, we can try giving it away, because that can be a big learning. But if we give it and then regret, we are kind of creating mixed karma too, right? So don't start just giving everything away if you're gonna regret and feel like there's an imbalance. Or you go and give away all your possessions, but you don't know a way to support yourself, and now you become a burden to somebody else. So we have to do this in balance. But the more we can give, the more we create this habit of generosity. And in the Buddhist tradition, there's also this, in the Tibetan tradition, there is this act of creating a shrine and putting offerings. Well, you can see that also in the Zen, in the Theravada. But you put the offerings, usually in the shrines that you see the 7 or 8 bowls, and you put water, but you can put also some elements that correspond to the senses, right? So we put water that represents nectar, then water that is for washing, because traditionally in the old times in India, the water for washing was offered to the visitors. Or we have flowers, incense, candles, and perfume and music. Like all the senses, we are so attached to the objects of the senses that a way to offering them to the Buddhas symbolically, we're offering it to our own Buddha nature. It's not like the Buddhas are going to come in the night and take their offerings. Great, I receive all these things, right? It's making imprints in our minds. So we're putting all these offerings mindfully, and it also helps us by doing that every day to put a seed. And the Buddha had this, there's this story, right, of a guy who came and told him, I find it so difficult to give. Like, I'm so attached to my possessions that I just can't. I want to practice generosity, but I find it so difficult. And so the Buddha said, start by little things. Start by taking something you own and pass it from your right hand to your left hand. Like, give it to your left hand. Mm-hmm. And then this thing, give it from your left to your right hand. And you're creating a mental imprint. And when this becomes very easy, you don't feel any resistance to do it, then you start giving little things that for you, you're not so attached, start giving to others. And then you increase the amount or the quality of the things you give, right? There's also another story that goes kind of in the warning sense, because we see a lot of Dharma centers too, which is all about give your donations, give your possessions to the center or to the teacher. And if it's like out of balance, it's not very healthy, right? Because the community or the center or the teacher, they're there to offer service to the people, not to collect and become wealthy. So there is a funny story of a rich woman that was studied Dharma with her guru, and one day she calls him and says, I'm feeling this spontaneous renunciation. I really want to be a good practitioner, and I'm feeling like giving away all my possessions. I don't want to be so attached to material possessions. I want to give them away. And the guru says, don't do anything. Don't give anything until I arrive. It's like implying that he wanted the things. So we have to also give in balance, and not just out of guilt or thinking that if we give, we're gonna achieve enlightenment because we are able to give more than others or something like that. I've seen also people that are very wealthy and they think they can buy their their place in the path, right? So they think that if they give a huge donation, then they're going to accelerate the process, or like without doing practice, without meditating, just by giving money, they can just gonna achieve enlightenment, right? But there has to be a balance with all the other parameters, with all the other practices. Otherwise, we're still giving out of self-centeredness, waiting for the reward, or expecting something in return. And we should be giving something that we don't regret and that we don't expect, even that they give us thank you. And check always our motivation, because we might be giving as a way to manipulate, or as a way to keep someone close to us, or as a way to convince someone about something. Our mind tricks us many times. It seems like we really want to give, but then if we investigate, we find that it's not as pure, our motivation. So we have to keep transforming that motivation with practice, right? And little by little. And sometimes, even if we feel like I don't have anything to give, well, there's so much places we can do volunteering. Just going and preparing soup, or doing something in those volunteer positions, can give you a lot of joy and meaning in our lives, right? So every day we can think of ways to practice generosity and give, and that makes our life meaningful. When we're just thinking about ourselves and our things and what we are going to achieve, accumulate, and get from the world, then we suffer a lot, and we get very stressed and anxious. But when we are focusing, what can I bring today to the world? What can I give? How can I contribute? Then your life starts becoming meaningful. And you can do it with any lifestyle, any job, any situation you have in your life. There's so much to give and do for the world, right? And even if you see an insect and is upside down and with the legs and cannot turn around, you can just take the time to turn them around, and that's an act of generosity. Like, you can give help whenever you see the opportunity. It doesn't have to be big things. We can do little acts of generosity, and that is a way to start making that imprint again and again until it becomes more habitual and helpful. So these are kind of three main groups of generosity, but there are so many ways to give, right? And we can be creative with that too. It doesn't have to be like just buying more things and giving material things. It can be something more abstract as well. So let's practice that generosity, starting now, and rejoicing, remembering how we did acts of generosity, and keep dedicating those acts of generosity to the fulfillment of those meaningful aspirations of the Dharma path, so that all beings are free from suffering, so that all beings can find happiness. Mm-hmm. Anything? Yeah?
Are we going to do for the trip for the pilgrimage to Tenzin Palmo and Kagyu Rinpoche? Are we going to do at both places kind of offering also?
Yeah, usually when you go visit a teacher, a lama, and sometimes you request teachings, or sometimes you just go to meet them, it's common to bring a white kata, this white cloth. Yeah. So you bring a white kata and you give it to them. They usually put it on your neck, not always. Sometimes I keep it, but it's like a way to offer something. And then you can bring an envelope with a donation, or you can bring fruit or chocolate or something you want to offer. And last time that we went, they prepared here some like basket with things, but I don't know if they're gonna give us something like that. But we can also bring, each one of us, our kata and our offering, and it doesn't have to be much, but it's like a way to say I make a karmic connection with the teacher, and also offering like some donation for their projects and the monastery, that they're doing something, so many good things in the world, right? Doesn't have to be like a big amount or anything, just something symbolic, so that you make that connection and not go empty-handed. But it's up to you, it's not obligation, right? Yeah, thanks for mentioning. Anything else? Yes.
I just wanna, I've been noticing a lot of people wearing masks outside on the walks, so it might be a good idea to check or wear it anyway when you go to these places, because I think there is, COVID is on the rise, is the sense that I got.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea if we're gonna be seeing them. Yeah, we don't want to bring anything to them, right? And also, like, if sometimes you are in a enclosed space and we are many like together with them, and no very good ventilation. So if let's bring our masks and make sure we follow that. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
So it's, while you were talking about generosity, I was struck by the opposite problem, that generally people hesitate to ask and they need some help. Now that's the, I don't know if it's a society thing or it's a individual barrier that we put up, but oftentimes you kind of discover too late that they didn't come to you for help. It could have been something as simple as advice, or it could have been the time or something else, right? So how do you kind of, counter that? Is it the barrier that you put up that people hesitate to come to you, or just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's kind of also a society learning, right? That we have now that you're weak or something. If you ask for help, we have to solve all our problems and do all our things ourselves without requesting any help, because but and we should respect, like, if we can't impose our help or our giving on others, but we can offer and say, I'm here in case you need any help or any support, or you count on me, and then like make it more evident, not just say it like everybody says, oh, you count on me, but then when they ask, you don't have time or you're busy. So it's like, really, really, you count on me. And also offering specific things that you see they might need, but they might not want to ask for, and be more specific about how you can offer and help. So that's one way. And also sometimes, depending on the person or the relationship, just giving it, and then if they say no, then okay, but sometimes they will accept it because they need it, they don't need to ask, but it depends on each specific case. We don't want to be giving out of a sense of superiority or a sense of pride, or thinking that we can impose that on others. Yes?
Which makes me think of an expression that it's easier to give than to receive.
Yeah, sometimes we have to learn to receive too, because sometimes out of pride we say, no, I don't need it, right? When somebody is offering us some help and they are trying to practice generosity. What we can do is, if we need it, accept it, help them practice generosity, and dedicate their merit, rejoicing for their action and dedicate it for their well-being. But yeah, it's true. We need to learn to receive as well. That's important. Thank you. Anything else? Well, this one sounds easy, but sometimes it's very difficult to practice it consistently.
I had a question about motive. You said transform the motive.
The motivation.
Like in the first part of generosity, when you're meditating, you said think of something that you don't need. Now, if I'm going to give out of that motivation, that will not have as much merit in it. I might, in my mind, change the motivation or find a different motivation, but both the motivations exist. Then, when I attempt, what I'm trying to say is, when the process of transformation one is trying, multiple motives exist. Then how does, in the process of giving, if there are, somebody might argue that you're giving out of a lower motivation or a higher motivation, how do one deal with those things? I don't know.
Well, the important thing is that you know your motivation, because we can think we know the motivations of others, but we can never be 100% sure about their motivation. The important thing is not to judge others for their motivations, but be very honest with ourselves about what is my motivation. Am I giving this really, I'm not expecting to receive anything in return? And sometimes you do. You're honest with yourself and you say, well, yeah, I want something in return. But still, if I don't receive it, I'm willing to give it. And sometimes you are able to transform that motivation and say, I want to really practice. I'm going to give it and really not expect, not even thank you. I'm going to give it because it's part of my practice and I want to really learn to give without any expectation and wishing well for this person or animal or being, right? So we can change our motivation if we check and we say, okay, I'm not doing it with the correct motivation. It's not an ethical motivation. How can I transform it and make it from the heart? So just by reflecting and changing the wording, the way you think about that action, you're changing the motivation. Becoming more aware, making a more conscious decision of how to give and how to practice generosity. Yes?
I have a question. If you give something and then, not necessarily you give something, but you just have a negative thought about situation, another human being, and so my question is, being aware, just the awareness that you feel that, and like, let's say that you can't really transform it into a positive thought, just noticing you have a negative thought. So the act of mindfulness towards this, is it helping in some way to reduce this, reduce the power of it, or I feel like it does have some power, but I'd like to hear how it should be done properly.
The more mindful we are, the more we know that thing is not going to have the power to make us act in the wrong way. So sometimes we notice there is some selfish motivation. We acknowledge it. We're present with it. We know it. We know we can't transform it. It just, in that moment, it's very difficult for us. We know it's there, and we accept that that's arising in our mind. But we can decide to still give and wish the best, and wish, may I be free from these selfish thoughts or this grasping I have to the thing. And then if you do that, when the emotion comes maybe at a different time of I shouldn't have given, or you catch yourself asking the person, I gave you this, now you have to give me this in return. Then, because you were mindful of your motivation, you will recognize, I'm trying to collect the payment for what I give. It's not fair. I didn't give without the expectation. So maybe you transform the way you relate later, and you don't demand, or you accept the circumstance that you already give it, you already let it go, and not be kind of demanding or blackmailing or asking that they pay you back. But if you do it without any mindfulness, without even being attentive of what was your motivation, you can just deceive yourself and say, yeah, I give it, I'm so generous, I just give and give and give. And you don't even notice you're manipulating or demanding or expecting that they love you. Just like wanting them to be close to you, or admiring you, or praising you, might be a motivation that we don't even notice that is there. So the more we know what's going on, the easier it is to change it too. Right? So that's our point. Anything else? Yes?
It's just an idea. I was just thinking about how do I increase acts of generosity, right? Because it just feels weird suddenly getting up and going and this thing. How do you inculcate it into your daily life? And thought occurred that maybe every time you receive something, you treat it as a debt and you pay it forward. Like simple thing that, like New Year's night, Sam went and baked all those things, right? All those nice stuff, and then you treat it as a debt. So next day you have to pay it forward. It's one way to kind of inculcate more of giving into your life.
It can be like that, but maybe more like being grateful every day, noticing that we receive so much from others, and being grateful for the food we receive every day, for this place, for everything we give sometimes for granted. And when we recognize that others are being generous, not only to ourselves, towards others, rejoicing is the practice of empathetic joy, like rejoicing and dedicating that the merit, the potential. And just by acknowledging and being grateful for it, it puts you into the, I want to contribute to. I want to be like that. I want to spread like what I receive. I also want to give, right? Not as a debt, but as a it makes sense that if I'm the recipient of so much good, that I also can give, and why not? And so start by things in our house, like saying, I have so many things that are useful and helpful, but that I don't use. So why not giving them to someone that is going to give them good use? Or I don't know, maybe I have a lot of money, so how can I give some of that money to put it into service? Or nowadays we have a lot of inspiring causes, because we might not have the time, we're busy, we have many commitments, we don't know how to make an impact in the world, but there are people doing something meaningful or amazing, and we can offer a donation, and that's a way of contributing to those actions that we consider are very meaningful in the world that they are giving. So we're supporting their project or what they're doing, right? And nowadays there's a lot of online campaigns that people do about different causes, and it's amazing the support. Many people join to help them to pay for their medical exams or their surgery or different things. And when you see that for a reason it came to you and there's something that moves you and that seems genuine and you feel the impulse, to take the time to give an offering there too, right? I recently I received a message from a friend, and her niece, which is also the daughter of a very good friend of mine from high school, she's doing this beautiful work in Mexico, where she's rescuing animals that are in critical state, like almost dying, because sometimes because they have an accident or something, but sometimes it's because people treat them very bad. So she rescued this horse that was it was a baby horse, it had like 1 year, 1.5 years of age, and the community called her and her organization in a very poor community, but they recorded this guy kicking the face of the horse, horrible, and so she rescued the horse and is healing the baby horse. And of course, when you see someone doing that out of compassion, the authorities, the police, they're not doing anything. They just don't see it as an important thing to deal with. But these are sentient beings that sometimes they die because nobody cares. So when you see that someone is putting their life, their energy, everything to save these animals, I want to support that because it's such a beautiful action that they are doing, right? She and her friends. So as much as we can give to alleviate the suffering of others in different situations or communities, sometimes we have the possibility to go and offer that help. And it really, when you do that kind of work, it really transforms your mind. If you are living a life where you feel very empty or selfish, and you go and put yourself in those places where you're just giving and giving time, service, help, it can be really transformative for us too, and take us out of that sometimes depression or feelings of that our lives are not meaningful. Immediately you feel that your life is put to service, to give, and it becomes a feeling of meaning. It's very, very beneficial for you and for the others. Yes?
And I think to that, because I was really wondering quite some years how I can, born in the Western world, being, part of the 10%, 5% richest people in the world, how can I, let's say, contribute in a way that is really helpful? So, of course, I could offer something in my community, but there I might have with, €1, not saved as many lives as if I would do it here in India or in somewhere in Africa or wherever. I don't know. Simply based on the fact that I can do more with less money in different areas. And based on this, I did some research and found out that there is actually an entire applied philosophy in regional branch in Western philosophy, which is I think primarily led by a guy called Peter Singer. And he let's say, also founded an organization called the Life You Can Save, and they are doing a lot of a lot of investigations on where is your money, if you're just able to give money, where is your money doing the most impact? So they're doing impact studies and so on this, and then have a path you can take if you want to be generous and live a generous life, earning to give. So you try, for example, to earn money and then pledge to give, for example, 5%, 10% of your income or so, which is a possible way if you don't have another possibility of helping, and also gives really insights on, okay, where is it helpful. So at least for me it was really an eye-opening thing of learning about these points. This is more common to what you said about the ores and where we can save, and which is quite funny is when we treat all sentient beings equal, then we can save actually more animals than humans with the same amount of, impact or work or power we are giving into, because there is more, humans care more about humans and humans care about animals. So you have, for example, in factory farms also you can save so many sentient beings. So this is a side note. And a question I have, based or looking back on Christmas and people making a lot of presents, what can we do with people who are making extensive presents and obviously want to, manipulate us, and also they don't want to give us something good. They just want to give really expensive presents and we don't want them, but they don't accept them. We are saying, no, sorry, this is too much, we don't want to take it, and then, an entire fight starts about why someone is not a nice person and taking the gift, and so what can we do with people who just don't accept that we don't want to take or we don't want to receive, and don't understand that this is not really what they are doing, is not really giving. It is more a selfish act.
I think it's important to not get into a fight, and if there is, like, sometimes you can tell a person, I prefer you don't give me gifts, but that you give me quality time, or that we have a friendship, or I really don't need more stuff, right? But if they are not open to have that communication, you can just receive what they are giving and be grateful that they have that action, and then just give it to someone that needs it. So kind of dedicating their merit and being an intermediary to pass it to someone that is in need. And then, of course, we have to be aware of our consumerist habits and how we buy gifts or things, and what kind of lifestyle we're contributing to, right? Because it's not just about buying gifts and giving. So if we can create more awareness in our communities, and especially if there's a lot of wealth, how can we canalize all that, as you say? There's so much in the world that if we distribute it correctly, we know nobody would have to die of hunger. That it's amazing that there's still people dying of hunger. And then all the animals, like, there's huge problems because of that greediness and accumulation. But how can we contribute? The thing is, until we are Buddhas and we can see all the network of karma and causes and conditions, we don't really know that our actions are having a really good impact or not. We might think our motivation is good. The motivation is very important, but we might think we're doing something good for someone and we are actually creating problems. For example, I met a person in the US that told me that she joined this group, this organization, that were coming to Mexico to poor community to offer help and kind of bring them some civilization in, right? Because they were living in such poor conditions. But when she was there and seeing what was going on, suddenly she realized these people are happier than us. They might have less material wealth, but they are happier, they are community, they support each other, and they are not asking for our help, and they don't even want it. Like, we're kind of imposing our help here and trying to make things our way of what they need to be happier, but we're not listening. We're not seeing really what their needs are. We are superimposing our needs, what we would need if we were in their conditions. So she decided, I don't want to be part of this. I'm leaving. And then the others were reacting because they were saying, why don't you want to be part of this wonderful action? And she was trying to say, listen, see how they are. We have more to learn from them than they from us. We are here trying to bring civilization, but they are happy like that. They don't want it, right? So for me, it was a very good example because she was telling me she's been in Mexico, we were talking, and it was a good example of how these things sometimes happen, that you think you're doing something good and giving, but if they don't want it, please listen, because maybe they need something else, right? So that's a good point. And then we not, like, sometimes we think only underdeveloped countries that have a lot of poverty, they need more than the rich countries. But when you see the super developed countries, they have also so much suffering and a lot of suicide rates and children killing in the schools and all kinds of problems that we see that make people also maybe more without sense of community, more solitary or lonely. There's other kinds of suffering, right? So, for example, there is this man that is doing a very beautiful work because he's half Japanese and half Colombian. When I was living in Colombia, I was introduced to his work, and it's very nice because he was a kid that grew up the first years in Colombia, which is a Latin American country, and then taken to Japan with his family from Japan. And he saw the contrast in cultures. They can be like two most opposite cultures, right? So him, for a kid coming to Japan, and then seeing the level of discipline in the school, like the teacher would leave the classroom and the children will continue working on their homework. And in Colombia and Mexico, these like countries, the teacher leaves and they start playing, right, and throwing things. Then you can't keep a child sitting. And then he would see that his grandpa would bring like a watermelon or, I don't know, a banana or a fruit, and it was like a big thing, a ritual, because it's something so rare and expensive that they would slice and give each child a slice of the fruit, and it was like a big deal. He thought, well, I come from a poor village in Colombia, but we have like lots of watermelon in the floor, people step on them, right? Like we have bananas and oranges all over like we have so much wealth in our village that is one of the poorest villages in Colombia, but I didn't realize until I'm in Japan and they value these things we have so much, right? So he started doing these programs where he brings young teenagers from Japan that are very lonely. There's a lot of suicide, depression, and stress because of the discipline and the expectations and the competitiveness that people get into developed countries. So he brings the teenagers to Colombia to interact with Colombian young people, and they learn to open their hearts and that sense of community and relax and take things more lightly, right? But then he brings Colombian teenagers to Japan to learn things like discipline and being punctual, because in Colombia or Mexico, these countries, like you say, let's meet at 4 and people arrive at 4:30 or at 5 or at 6 even, and it's normal, it's usual, right? So he brings these Colombians and says, look what this society is able to achieve by being disciplined and kind of organized, and learn from them. So by doing these programs, they can teach and help each other the best of what they've learned in their lives. So I think in any place we are and wherever we live, we can be mindful of what people are going through and how we can also give and support there, right there where we are. There is someone that needs something, right? And sometimes there is old people that have no family, no relatives, and we can be their friends or help them or bring them food or something. Sometimes we can teach something, like here in Dharamsala there's a lot of people having exchange with Tibetans and teaching them English. There's a place where you can go and volunteer and have conversations with them in English, just talking, but they put into practice their skill, their training in English, which is something that will be a tool for them in the future, right? So there's so many ways to give wherever you are, if we are mindful and observing, like, and asking. Also, sometimes we have to ask what they need, and then we can start giving that. Or also be mindful that they might ask for something, like they might ask you for alcohol, like a drunk people in the street, a beggar that is just drunk all the time. If you give them alcohol or money, maybe you're not helping. Maybe give them some food, or I don't know. Like, we have to put more, not just to get out of the situation fast and continue with our self-centered oriented goals. We just sometimes just give out of impatience. So put attention, then you will know what is the right thing to give.